I'm Washela Sananda, and today I am live with Suzanne Gerber, my favorite astrologer. So welcome, Suzanne.
It's so fun to join you here live. Thank you.
So today on Alchemy of Ascension Season 4 is Suzanne's day. If you've already opted in, you will have received her email this morning. And we had such a fun conversation. And Suzanne, you always come so prepared. I'm always just kind of amazed at the content that you bring. And I feel like we could probably talk for hours, but just to kind of recap the essence of that conversation, ultimately it was about bringing like your frequency up, raising your vibration with astrology, which is such a fun concept for people studying ascension or working on bettering themselves. So we had a lot of different things around that, including a journey through the planets. But do you want to give like a nutshell recap of what we talked about?
Yeah, sure. And I think of something that I really try to convey to people who are trying to learn about astrology or work with their chart or use it in any practical way is it's not fixed in stone. There's not just one set of meanings. There's a whole evolutionary spectrum of every single thing, from the way the planets express from their more basic plot level, you could say primitive level, to just getting your needs met or letting your ego be in charge, to the next level. And of course it's a slider, it isn't like there are fixed levels, but the next level of ascended or evolutionary consciousness has to do with realizing that we're psychological beings, emotional beings. We're not just being driven by our egos and our basic needs and desires. And then it kind of moves up that evolutionary scale into more spiritual, soul-directed, trying to understand not just the what, but the why, and how do we use this for the greatest good of everybody. Now, this is planets, this is signs, and this is the angles between the planets. Like people will say, my moon is, conjunct Saturn, and will I never find love? Or my Venus is in a difficult aspect with Uranus. These seem like, in traditional astrology, very challenging things. But here's the thing, all of these levels exist at all times for all of us. Just like even if we didn't have astrology, it would be the same opportunity to raise our vibration, to choose. You could call it taking the high road, being a good, person of your faith, whatever it is. It's really about consciousness and choice. And we can use the charts to give us indications of what our potentials are, what the opportunity for the greatest good is. And it's simply by saying, I'm not going to be reacting. I'm not going to be triggered by this. I'm going to stop and I'm going to look at all my possibilities. And then the more we learn the language of astrology, the exquisite code, we learn how to say, well, instead of being jealous, like some strong Scorpio stuff gets triggered, I'm jealous, I'm angry, I have revenge fantasies or something like that, to say, wait, but in Scorpio, I also have the opportunity to transform it, for regeneration, to take it to a higher level. And that's when we have to just stop for a split second and remember that we really are conscious spiritual beings. And that's the way I like to work with astrology. And people can not feel so, we don't want to say victimized or marginalized, but just to see that you can just expand it and transcend it at any given moment.
Yes. And I love how you tie that into like a spiritual path. So there's so much in your conversation. So for anybody that wants to see that and hasn't opted in, I put the opt-in link on the Facebook page. So be sure to get it. When this goes to YouTube, I'll have it in the write-up. And then Suzanne also gives a great free gift. And also there's a link where you can get your chart done for free, so you can follow along with your chart. Because you got into reading my chart a little bit and the planets and all of that. It's so interesting. But so today, what I wanted to do is just give everybody a little taste of what in the world or what in the cosmos is going on, because I keep getting emails from people about how, whoa, what's happening? You know, I feel so weird or so off or melancholy, or I can't get my mojo back, or I just feel disconnected. And it seems to be a theme going on with a lot of people right now. Can we relate this to something astrologically?
We can always relate things to astrological patterns and movements. And there's a lot of interesting things going on right now. I do want to say in general, two things. One is, you know, you're hearing this now because I'm working with the stars every single day of my life. I hear this from people constantly. So, you know, it's like people say, we've never had it so bad. Life has never been so terrifying. We've never been so close to blowing ourselves up. You know, Shayla, I want to remind you and everybody listening, people have been saying that for thousands of years. People have always thought that it was the most dire moment in history. So keep things in perspective. We're still here. You know, all those people that have predicted the end of the world or nuclear, you know, blowing up or whatever, it hasn't happened yet. The other thing to say, and this is very real, because when we are focused in our 3D dimension, which is where we live a lot of our time, there really is this thing that's happening globally. Whatever your beliefs are, I'm not here to challenge them or defend them. I'm just here to say there is something going on in the world that's really having an effect on every single person on Earth. And even those of us that have a pretty high vibe and a lot of optimism and hope, even as we've gone through some very, very dark chapters, we're all affected by it. And for some of us, it's very insidious and it's very subtle. We might think, no, good. My work is great. I'm helping more people than ever. I'm feeling fit and healthy. But here's the thing, look at what might not be expressing itself. You know, a lot of times when you're not consciously acting on something, it gets suppressed. Are you having digestive problems? Are you having sleep issues? Here's a good one. Are you craving carbohydrates? That's such a biggie with people. So those two things said, what I want to say is in September, right now it's September 2nd, and we're right in the heart of what we call in the astrological business retrograde season. We've got 6 planets, with only 11. We've got 6 of them, and only 9 of them retrograde. And that includes the healing comet Chiron. They're all spinning retrograde. Now, no, they're not actually going backward in the sky and causing all kinds of, you know, like traffic screw-ups. Energetically, their pathways are off. Their rotation, their orbit around the sun, we don't all have these perfect little circles. We have some odd shaped orbits. And when the planets get to the weird or wonky or stretched out part of their orbit around the sun, they can go slower. And when they go slower, but the Earth keeps, you know, trucking along at its normal rate, the planets seem to us on Earth to be moving backward, or what we call retrograde. And the effect of that is just a lack of control and a lack of the ability to move forward with our initiatives, whatever they may be. It could be personal, it could be in your family. This can be collective stuff. This is why certain countries are having more problems. Things just seem to get a little more intense in the summer. Weather can have an effect, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, but right now we've got, like I said, 6 planets, and at the end of this month, on September 27th, Mercury is going to go retrograde too. Now, about 1 in 5 people are born with Mercury retrograde, so it's not the most uncommon thing in the world. And for that 20% statistical percent of the population, they actually like Mercury retrograde because that's like their vibe. You know, it's like that's when the world seems to get into their rhythm instead of them trying to, you know, shape shift and catch up to things that aren't quite their natural pace. So right now we've got Pluto, which is going to be retrograde for another 5 weeks, almost 5 weeks. Saturn for 6 weeks. Jupiter or 8 more weeks, or six or 7. Neptune is also retrograde until December 1st. Chiron until December 19th, and Uranus until next January. And then in December, Venus is going to turn retrograde, which she only does every other year. So the cumulative effect of that, these are the planets that help us activate our change. Mars is the planet of action, but he's actually direct. But these other things kind of regulate. Can we push? Can we expand? That's Jupiter's role. Can we pivot? That's Uranus. Can we transform and raise up? That's Pluto. And right now the answer is maybe not so much. And when you have this much at once, and also what's really important to remember is I'm talking about the sky in a very general way, but these planets at their different degrees of different signs are going to be hitting things in everybody's chart. You know, in your chart and my chart and people listening, we're all getting different effects of this. So people, you know, it's not like we're all experiencing depression or frustration. People are experiencing different things because of the way the planets are affecting their personal chart, which is why it's so important to, you know, have an understanding of your own chart and to work with someone who isn't you to help you objectively look at it. Because when you try to do it for yourself, you know, I often use this analogy. It's like Googling your medical symptoms. It can really lead to worst case scenario, which is never advisable. So that's kind of the big picture.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing about that. And hopefully that will kind of ease some people's minds who are, you know, those people that are like, why am I hitting a wall right now? Or why am I feeling all this stuff? I mean, all of that can bring up emotional stuff as well, right?
Well, that's exactly what it brings up, because we don't only just deal with things, you know, with our hands and our legs. I mean, it immediately goes right into our energy centers, right? And where do we put it? Also, we're all just kind of wired and built and assembled differently. And so for some of us who have, let's say, very sensitive stomachs, right? And solar plexus, second and third chakra areas, people who have that kind of sensitivity, that's where they're going to feel it. And they can maybe get some, you know, health challenges during this time. I'm not saying anything, you know, dire or distressing. It's just we all hold our stresses in different places. So that's another reason to have an understanding of your chart. What are your predispositions? The other big story, like every year has a big astrological story. 2020 was about Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto traveling together in Capricorn. A lot of people were tracking that to watch kind of the trends of the virus. Now, they didn't cause the virus and they didn't necessarily affect all the different things that happen, but they reflect it. We can kind of use them. It's sort of like that little needle on your speedometer the needle isn't making your car go faster, right? Other forces are, but that's your feedback system to know what's going on. So the stars can be like a feedback system for us. This year's big story is 2 very intense planets, Saturn and Uranus, which happen to be the co-rulers of the sign of Aquarius, have been going in and out of a very challenging angle to each other in the sky, which is called a square. It's a 90-degree angle that's very tense. Saturn is the planet of old paradigms and conservatism and keeping things together and structure. It's not good or bad, it's neutral, but it does represent certain more traditional ways of being in the world. It's what helps us pay our bills on time and, you know, make sure our house doesn't spring a leak. It can be a really good ally, or it can be very restrictive and make us fear the future. Now, it's in the sign of Aquarius, which is one of the 2 signs that it rules. And it's squaring the other ruler of Aquarius, which is Uranus. Uranus is all about change and innovation and moving forward and just saying, this doesn't work, blowing it up. It's fast, it's radical, it's spontaneous, it's exciting, and it's terrifying. And this is a very big story for this year. And they had their first square in January of 2021. They had their second on June 14th. These dates might resonate for certain people. They'll have their final one on Christmas Eve day, December 24th. And that's kind of a culmination of a lot of this tension between the old and the new, both in our own lives and collectively. People that have school-age kids like yourself, what's going to go on? Is my kid going to go to school? Is he going to have to be homeschooled? Are we doing a hybrid? How do I get him there? How do I find out? Things are very much in flux, and that's affecting, so that's big picture, but it's affecting everybody personally too. Our healthcare systems can't get back into a hospital anymore because so many of them are COVID hospitals now. If you have other issues, you can't even get in. So that's big picture, but it affects us all personally if that comes up for us. And, government and education and just the distribution, trying to get supplies, everything is in flux. And whether or not you have school-age kids or dealing with institutionalized healthcare or trying to get building supplies or even just to retailers who can't even get things to stock their stores, we're all being influenced by it directly or indirectly. And I think this is what we're all feeling. We don't always think about that because we go through our daily lives. Like we're just trying to get through the day, like meet our responsibilities, fulfill our obligations, take care of the people that we're here to take care of, get some good food into our bellies, and hopefully get a good night's sleep. That can be such a focus for so many people that we don't even hit pause and go, whoa, how is the supply chain affecting me? I can't get what I want to get, or why is my food bill, my grocery bill so high? These are subtle stressors. And with half the sky, it's actually more than half the sky because the sun and the moon never retrograde. It's more than half the sky is retrograde. Saturn and Uranus are doing this, kind of like Mortal Kombat game, and we're all feeling it. And also right now we're about 1 week into this, and we've got about 3 more weeks. We're in Virgo season because the sun is in Virgo. Most people know that. Mars is also in Virgo. Mercury just left Virgo. Virgo is very mental and analytical and organized. Virgo likes to keep things really tight, keep a tight lid on things. But we've got Neptune in an opposition with this. Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, where it's very, very powerful. It's powerful in a kind of passive resistance kind of way. Oh, really? You're trying to do all that? Good luck. Let's see. And so I've got these dates somewhere. Mars is going to move into an opposition with it. And then the sun is going to move into an opposition with it. And I think that for some people, that's going to feel very personal. Like, I finally went to organize things and I can't find the essential thing I need. Or it can be very unique to the person who's going through it. And then we have a full moon in Pisces on September 20th, which can be a very exciting time to bring it all into integration. Are we trying too hard to be organized and analytical and thinking? Maybe that's not the best approach right now. Maybe we need to just switch that off and let our intuition and let our hearts and let what's bubbling up inside of us lead the way for a little while, instead of trying to, push that off to the side and make it behave, like some kind of a show dog or something. But that's not what our emotions are, and that's not what our spirit is. And so maybe what's going on right now is a little bit of an internal battle to figure out what to lead with. Do we lead with our rational, practical, adult, responsible self? Or is it a time to get a little kooky and messy and creative and spiritual? And I think that is probably the biggest opportunity that we have right now, even as things seem a little chaotic.
Wow, thank you for that. I mean, in some ways that explains a lot. Like as you're talking, like, yeah, I've been feeling like cleaning and like starting fresh with all my whiteboards and, creating new projects and completing old projects. But then also sometimes I just feel like taking a nap. So, we're just like, I just want to go to the beach. Which is all good. We have to have balance, right? But I love the way that you explained how the retrograde planets and then the squared planets are sort of creating that fighting, that feeling of opposition. And we certainly see that in the world with, seems like everybody's taking sides on everything in every way. And yeah, I mean, not that that's not always going on at some level, but it does seem to be exacerbated right now. So I also loved your reference to the speedometer in the car and, telling you how fast you're going and how the stars can be like that. I've never thought of it in that way, where you can look at the stars and say, oh yeah, it's like a gauge for what's going on. Not causing it, but also a reflection of it. So that's a great way to conceptualize that. Thank you, Suzanne. So this is just a short one, and I think you covered a ton in that short amount of time. So thank you for all of that. Is there anything else you want to throw in before we go? And make sure you tell people your website so they can find you.
Yeah, sure. Well, another thing that is worth noting when we're thinking about what's going on in the sky right now, sometimes when there are challenging things going on, people can fixate on them and get stuck and mired in that energy. And I think it's really important to remember that everything will pass, right? That's one of the greatest teachings of astrology, is that these are cycles and there are seasons. And just as something comes in, that's like the Wheel of Fortune card, right? In the tarot, you could be at the top of the world, you could be at the bottom of the world, but it's always going to be turning. And just to remember that it's not always going to stay dark. And the cliche about the darkest before the dawn. And also, even more than that, it's to say, well, wait, what opportunities are here? Sometimes we have to be squeezed. You know what I mean? We have to be challenged. When we're comfortable, we don't change. We don't grow, right? We just we're complacent. We're like, no, I'm good. But when things aren't comfortable, like these squares, which are not exactly oppositions, they're more like conflict. They're more like that thing in your side that you've gotta act on because it's just annoying. And the retrograde is just frustration. It's, you just can't seem to get traction on something. But the planets are going to move forward. I gave you everybody the dates of that. We're coming into, in November and December, as we do every year, we're coming into the year's second eclipse season. And the eclipses are these bright times, or dark, depending on whether it's solar or lunar. But what I mean is they're these stunning moments where you can really start to bring about change in your life. They're major activators, and they stay that way. They can set up a 6-month pattern. We're still in the energetic matrix, if you will, of the last group, which were on May 26th and then on June 10th. And they're always going to be, they spend about 1.5 years in different signs, because it's where the nodes are. And so that was along the Gemini Sagittarius axis. And then the next batch, there's usually 2. Every now and then, the blue moon, literally the blue moon, will give us a 3rd. But we think in terms of a solar and a lunar around the summer solstice and around the winter, although it is usually a bit before. This year it's November 19th. Anybody who has anything around 27, 28 of Taurus, or wherever 20 and 20, 27, 28 Taurus is in your chart, even if you don't have planets there, let's just say it falls in your 5th house. Well, creativity is going to get a new opportunity to shine, to culminate, for you to get recognition. It could be love. That's just if it's in your 5th house. And then on December 4th, there's a solar eclipse, meaning a new moon it's going to be at 12. So anybody who has anything at 12 or 13 degrees of Sagittarius has an opportunity for fresh starts. So wherever you have the middle of Sagittarius, let's say you have it at the top of your chart in your 10th house, you could have a new career. You could change directions or change positions. If you work with clients, you could get involved with a new client. It's Sagittarius. It could be something overseas or global or involving education. So these are really exciting times to look forward to. And there's always, I mean, every month we have a new moon and a full moon. And if nothing else, look to the moons. There's a reason that ancient people, pagan people, earth, people that live very close to the earth, people that do green witchcraft, things like that. We do shamans, we do rituals around the new moon and the full moon every single month to honor these cycles of creating new and bringing to completion and acknowledging and honoring it. And that's something, and this is worth mentioning, again, back to our just busy get through the day kind of mentality. What if we slowed down? What if we stopped? Even if we don't practice or even really pay attention to astrology, what if we just honored the cycles of the planets? The moon, we see her most nights. And you know, where we live here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, we get some unbelievable moons. It really feels like she's talking to us. She's just right there. Tune in. Even if it's a hazy night, even if you live in a big city, you know, with a lot of light pollution, you can energetically tap into that. Take a time out, feel the energy of it. There's information all over the internet. You know, what does that mean? What signs are we in? What is this good for? It's just a way to slow down and reconnect a little bit. And that would be something I would encourage everybody to do in a way that works for them.
Beautiful. Thank you, Suzanne. Where can people find you?
The best place to find me is my website, which of course starts with 3 W's, and it's starsandstoneshealing.com. If they're watching on Facebook, presumably they have a Facebook account. I have a private group, but it's free and it's open to anybody who requests membership. It's called Purpose Driven Astrology. And I post something pretty much every day that looks at what's going on in the sky and tries to put an informational, insightful, or definitely inspirational spin on it to give people ideas of how you could take even a challenging aspect and put it to good use. And I have an Instagram. It's the same thing, Stars and Stones Healing.
Wonderful. Suzanne, you're so generous. Thank you for your time. And for anyone watching the summit, I loved the conversation we had there and how you shared about raising your astrological vibration and how you can use that for your own ascension process. So everyone tune in there. I'll make sure I include links in the write-up below, and we're going to close. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day or night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks and bye.